will be queen one day, and my coronation will be celebrated all over the world. Do not forget, I am divine.
What a day for an execution.
All right, guys, go to your mom. Come on, run. Come on, go to your mother. I know you guys don't want to go. Come on, run.
Spine number 1138, because that's how many movies we're in at this point, the Criterion Collection, is Daddy Longlegs from 2009 from none other than the Safdie brothers themselves. The Safdie brothers I pretty much have been following ever since heaven knows what. They have a really good, unique style, and I just really enjoy their films. And so when Daddy Longlegs was coming to the Criterion Collection, I was like, all right, cool. And much like a ton of other stuff, I went out of my way to buy it, and then it's just sat on my shelf forever. But I finally watched it. The story is basically about a man who needs to learn to grow up and take care of his children living in the seedy side of the New York City. First off, I really love the look of this film. It's like super grainy and you don't have like a clear point of time that it's filmed in. It's kind of like ambiguous with its time setting, and just the heavy grain mixed with how the Safdies use handheld close-up shots kind of just looks great. But not only that, it also kind of cements this almost anxiety-induced style and presentation that really like suits the story as well. It helps capture that kind of grimy New York look that I love from certain films, but it also has that Safdie's aesthetic that kind of just impacts the tone of the film and maybe makes things a little bit more exciting than they actually are on screen. The performances here are pretty good across the board, including the two little child actors. They're actually pretty good in this film, which is surprising because normally child actors are terrible, and when you have like a low budget movie like this, you probably wouldn't expect much from them, but like pretty good. My biggest problem though is like mainly the pacing of the film, where it wasn't until like halfway through the film that the film finally just kind of clicked for me. That first half I felt like the film was really trying to get his footing and it just wasn't landing for me. I wasn't that invested, and then the guy does the thing to his children and then the story gets much more interesting from there on out. And I also realized saying it that way probably indicates some kind of like Jeffrey Epstein style thing, and that's not what happens here. It's not as crazy as that, but it's still like you probably shouldn't do that kind of thing. You know what I mean? I don't know how to describe it without spoiling it, so you should just watch the movie. I think this one's also on AMC Plus if you want to watch it there. I think that's where this is on streaming wise. But yeah, once the story kind of finds its footing in that like middle act to the back end, I really enjoyed the film a lot. Like I said, that first little act was I was really struggling to get there, but when that finally happened and the story picked up and the characters started moving more, that was when I was like, yeah, this is really starting to click for me, and I really ended up enjoying the back half of the film for sure. The Safdies also have this really strong way to capture authenticity. That is a hard word for me to say. Authenticity in people that really a few directors can. And while this is probably their weakest film in my opinion, there's still a lot to enjoy here, and I would still definitely recommend it. I think their films after this are much better. Heaven Knows What, Good Time, Uncut Gems, I think are all much better than this film. But I think this is like a good like starting point film, you know what I mean? I don't think this is their first film. I think they did like a documentary or something first. Don't hold me to that. I didn't fact check this before recording this, but yeah, I really enjoyed Daddy Longlegs. Definitely check it out. Pretty good. It's a 6 out of 10.
Mi padre era sastre.
No soy hija de hombre.
Spine number 838 is Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth from 2006. Del Toro is a director I really love. Like anytime his name's attached to a project coming out, I'm pretty interested in it. But for some reason or not, I've never like went back to watch his Spanish films. And Pan's Labyrinth being kind of like the antithesis of not only like his style, but like that's the movie everybody knows from Del Toro, right? Everybody always references Pan's Labyrinth, and it's just a movie I've always wanted to see and just never have, and I finally watched it, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty great. Not like it's good. It's Del Toro, right? It's Del Toro doing the Del Toro-y things. Like, this is without a doubt the most Del Toro movie to ever Del Toro around. You know what I mean? It's a dark fairy tale where this girl and her mother go to live with this general in this like war-torn kind of area, and her mother's sick and pregnant, and she's like finding these little fairies, and they guide her to the fawn, and she finds out that she's potentially the daughter of she's a princess basically, and she's got to do these tasks for the fawn. And yeah, it's great. It has every kind of element and vibe that you would expect from Del Toro, right? If you were like, hey, you know, if if AI was like, hey, what is Del Toro's, you know, filmography like, what is his style like, it would probably make Pan's Labyrinth again. Like, it's just as Del Toro-y as Del Toro gets, and I love it. If you like those kind of like really dark fantasy elements that Del Toro has been kind of known for, this is, like I said, the antithesis of this. This is, why do I use words that is hard for me to say? Yeah, this movie is great. Honestly, like, I kind of went into it expecting it to be pretty good, but I was kind of still kind of blown away by it. I don't think this is still my favorite movie from him, but it's like number 2 if not, right? It's like right up there. It's really, really good. The thing that really surprised me was how dark this movie actually gets. Like, this has got some really gnarly and brutal stuff in it. It's pretty bleak. There's a lot of depressing things happen in this movie, and yeah, it's like I said, there's a couple moments that just pop out of nowhere, and you're like, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? It's like, whoa, calm down there, Del Toro. But outside of that, yeah, it's great. It was beautifully shot. The makeup and costumes look fantastic. The CG that's here is still really good. There are moments that are really noticeable, especially like fire and explosion effects look really bad and really dated. But for the most part, like, everything else looks good. Like, there's a slug bull thing that still looks pretty good to this day, considering it's from 2006. I think Del Toro, though, knows how to like play with CGI and the lighting to kind of make things better, if that makes any sense. But yeah, there's some really gorgeous looking stuff here. And that's the thing, is like, when it comes to the costumes and the character designs and the actual like wardrobe and makeup and stuff, Del Toro is a freaking master at this stuff, and this movie is no different. Like, it just looks great visually. It has such a easy aesthetic to sell. I think the score here is really good too. It's incredibly fitting, but also pretty rememberable. Again, using words hard for me to pronunciate. I would listen to it outside. I would listen to it outside of the film. Like, there's a lot of things here I really like, and I would definitely be watching this again at some point. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Could go up on a second watch. I don't think it would go down, but really good stuff. Really enjoyed it.
J'ai un nouveau sentiment. Lequel? Le regret.
Spine number 1034 is Portrait of a Lady on Fire from 2019, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce some of these French names. This is a French film from Céline Sciamma, maybe? I don't know. You can watch this on Hulu, though, if you want to. But this was a movie that's been on my watch list for quite a while. It just always looked really interesting, and after watching it, yeah, I really dug this one. This is actually one that I'm just going to preference right out of the gate by saying that the more I've said on it, the more I've thought about it, the more I've liked this movie. There's something about this that it kind of just creeps up on you, of just like, man, that was really good, you know? It's like, I keep thinking about scenes from this movie, I keep thinking about things from this movie. So what's this story about? Well, it's about a girl who, or a woman I should say, going to paint to a portrait of a lady on fire. I'm kidding. Kind of. It's about this painter who goes to this castle mansion place to paint this woman who's about to be wedded, right? And her whole shtick is she won't let anybody paint a portrait of her, so the painter has to go undercover as her friend /escort, and not in that way, but like, you know, someone who like hangs out with this woman, who's paid to hang out with this woman. And through that hanging out, she remembers what this woman's like and her face and everything, and then she's got to paint her painting through that. Well, a certain a certain style of romance appears between the two, and it's really good. Honestly, I found the story just to be super interesting. Like, there's a lot of aspects to the story that is just really enjoyable. Like, I like the whole fact that she's just trying to befriend her, and she learns a lot about this woman, and her job kind of, in a way, turns her hand to kind of fall in love with this woman in a way, because, like, she learns like all these details about this woman because she has to try to paint her. And so it's just, I don't know, it's really interesting how it comes out, you know, the way it all unfolds through the paintings, I guess, and everything. It's really fascinating. For a movie that is like just a little over 2 hours, it really flies by for the most part. I do think there's moments here where the film kind of, maybe meanders is the wrong word, but meanders feels right. Especially when it comes to the servant character. There's like a maid servant character subplot that I feel like it really took away from the main focus of the story, and I wasn't a big fan of it. Our two lead actresses, I'm Noemi Merlant and Adele Hanel. I didn't look up how to say any of these names, I'm sorry, but yeah, they're both fantastic in this movie. They both give really good performances, but I think the standout for me is just the cinematography. This is a gorgeous looking movie. Through the framing, its color palette, through how the camera moves and everything, it's just a beautifully shot movie that, you know, I feel like if you're making a movie about painting and art, you probably should be well shot yourself, you know? And I also think the ending of this film is really, really powerful. I loved the ending of this movie because the credits scrolled. I'm kidding. Because I thought the ending was just a really great climax, but it's also kind of bittersweet in a way. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's really good. It just it feels like a complete ending, but also, you know what I mean, it kind of leaves you wanting maybe a little bit more. But I really like this movie. The more, like I said, the more I've kind of thought about it, the more I'm just like, yeah, this is really good. So it's like, originally I was like, it's a 7 out of 10, but now I'm thinking it's probably an 8. I think like I'm gonna probably give it a 7.5 for right now, but it would probably go up to an 8 on a second watch, and I would totally be down to watch this again. So Portrait of a Lady on Fire, pretty good. You can watch it on Hulu apparently, because I'm looking at the IMDb while doing this, and it says watch on Hulu, and it's like, why do that when you can pay $20 for the Criterion?
Kill everyone now. Condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit. Filth are my politics. Filth is my life. Take whatever you like.
Spine number 1131, which is just absurd how many Criterions there are, is Pink Flamingos from 1972, directed by John Waters. This is a midnight movie that has been on my watch list forever because I've heard great things about it. It's supposedly just like a really like decent trashy movie. It's kind of one of the movies that kind of launched John Waters' career in the whole like midnight movie era. And I gotta be honest with you, I really hated this movie. Oh god, did I hate this movie. So if you don't know what this movie is, Divine, starring Divine. Divine is an interesting figure in pop culture for sure, and she plays herself kind of here as Divine, who is named the most filthiest person alive. So she's kind of like on the run, and this couple, this man and this woman, want to become the most filthiest people alive, and so they want to take that title from her, and that's kind of the whole plot of the story, and boy does it meander. First off, my thing with this whole movie is like, I don't, because I know a lot of people really love this movie. It just did nothing for me at all. I think the movie is poorly shot. I like the grimy look to it, of, you know, that low budget, lo-fi kind of look to it, but like it's not shot well, so it's not really in service of anything. The acting is horrendous. Everybody just screams their lines, and they do that thing. There's a thing with like really bad acting that you can pick up on, is when there's no breath in their dialogue. So they're just repeating dialogue lines like this as fast as possible, and then there's no natural cadence in their dialogue, and that's the case here. Everybody just screams their lines back to back to back to back to back to back to back. The lines are dumb and not really funny. I think all the attempts of humor fails massively in this movie. I mean, at least for me it did. I didn't find anything remotely funny about this movie. I just found it to be just kind of obnoxious the entire time. The acting across the entire board is really, really bad. The only performance I think is halfway decent is Divine, and I think she's decent enough that I would care to like check out some more of her performances, because she does kind of have like a good on-screen presence. But when it comes to like everything else in this film, it just fails. They unnecessarily kill a chicken. That was kind of uncool. I'm not a big fan of any time real animals get killed on screen for no reason. I believe that was an accident according to IMDb trivia, a little bit I read, but regardless, like it was completely unnecessary to put a real chicken in that harm's way at all. So I'm not a big fan of that. But outside of that, like, what's the point of this movie? It's just to be gross, right? It's an excess and bad taste. It's like, and the thing too is like, it's not even coming off in bad taste or shocking like some other movies I've seen that's kind of in this like gross out kind of category. To me, this one is very much like, oh my God, look at me. Look how crazy I am. Look how zany I am. Look how offbeat we are. You know what I mean? It just screams, hey, look at me. Hey, Mr. Macy's, look at me. You know what I mean? That's what it reminds me of. It's just, it has that attitude of like, everybody stop and look at Pink Flamingos. You know what I mean? And not in a sense of like, you should watch this, but like, I'm craving attention because we're different. If that makes any sense. I don't know how else to describe it. It doesn't come off as sincere or authentic. It just comes off as obnoxious. And it's obnoxious through the entire runtime. And yeah, none of the gross out. You know what? I really thought, spoilers. If you're not seeing Pink Flamingos, there's a scene in it. I'm about to spoil it. It's not a big deal. I think everybody knows. It's kind of what the film is infamous for. Is there's a scene where Divine literally just goes eats dog poop for real. Just literally eats dog poop. And I honestly thought that would be really gross and gross me out. But by the time it got to that scene, I was so checked out of this movie and so tired of this movie that I didn't even care. That I was just like, what was the point of that? You know, oh, look how gross and filthy I am. Congratulations. You know what I mean? Like, you ate dog poop. Gross. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's gross, but like, it has no purpose. There's no reason behind it. And that's like this entire movie. There's no purpose or reason behind it. It's an exercise in poor taste. Sure, but like, you could have put it in service of something. You know what I mean? To me, this is almost as pointless as movies get. It's a 1 out of 10. That's it. I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed because I went into this really hoping that it would be really fun. I went into this really hoping that it would be like a fun, trashy midnight movie. There was some like gross scenes. You go, oh, you know, like, ooh, gross, ate dog poop, you know, kind of thing. But instead, I was just like, I am so ready for this to be over. It has all the trappings that I hate in movies: poor editing, bad cinematography, horrendous acting, terrible dialogue, terrible story plot, and it is boring. It is so long and so boring. There are things here on paper that you could go, this is really fucked up. There are things here on paper where you could say that, but the film, I think I've hit my microphone like 15 times now doing this video because I'm just, you know, wacky arm inflatable tube man out here. But when it comes to like the actual like film, it's like on paper there is a lot of things here that is like unsettling, disturbing, and gross, but then you see it in its execution and you're like, really? You know what I mean? There's grosser and better things than Jackass. You know what I mean? It has more of a purpose in that, and then you watch this and you're just like, this is dumb. It's not for me. If you love this movie, have at it. I'm happy for you. But I guess, you know, when I think about it, if you want like a good comparison, Pink Flamingos has a scene where Divine eats dog poop, and it's real. It's not fake, it's real. Sallow, or the 120 Days of Sodom, has a scene where people eat poop. It's fake. Sallow, 1,000 times more disturbing and gross and unsettling than Pink Flamingos. That did it for real because of the context, because of how it was shot, how it was directed, and the entire scope of everything around it. That's all missing here in Pink Flamingos. 1 out of 10.
Let the good people of this country know that they cannot fuck with Divine and get away with it.